Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. I'm here today with Peter Jaffe, the head of data at Teachable, and today we're speaking about customer-facing reports. So welcome to the show, Peter. It's so great to have you today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, and could you tell the audience just more about your background and experiences in the line of work that you're doing today?
Sure. So real quick, if you don't know Teachable, it's an online platform for entrepreneurs in the creator economy to build and sell their online courses and coaching. As head of the data team there, I have data engineers and data analysts in our BI unit reporting up to me. And I spend a fair amount of my time as a data engineer as well. I like to keep my hands in it. Sometimes I'm able to spend as much as half my time writing code, which is nice. Often it's not that much. A little bit about my background before I was at Teachable. I was at an ad tech company called Freestar, where we built all the infrastructure from scratch, and that was a really nice experience, getting to come in fresh and build everything exactly the way we wanted to. Before that, I was at Hearst and the data team in the central technology there, and had our hands in all kinds of things. Hearst, big publisher, a lot of very heavy traffic websites. The event pipeline there was very high volume, hundreds of millions of records a day, and so that was my biggest data experience. Really was handling that stuff. So
yeah, no, that's great. And a lot of different companies are trying to be more data-driven today, since data science in general and data analytics, it's the new thing that a lot of people are trying to get up and just start using in the technology world right now.
Yep.
So how is Teachable being more data-driven today?
So when I joined Teachable, not quite 3 years ago, we didn't really have what I would call a proper data warehouse. We were just kind of copying tables from the production databases over into Redshift. We were using Looker for business intelligence, and I've encountered Looker at a few different companies, and I know it can be a good fit for a lot of companies, but it was not a good fit for Teachable. The Look ML layer that you have to go in and do some coding work to make any data source available to end users was a big barrier. It was really difficult for end users at Teachable to get data they needed, and both the data analyst and we at that time had a data scientist on the team were spending most of their time doing ad hoc requests just to answer fairly simple questions, and kind of the same stuff over and over again. And so when I joined, one of the first things I wanted to do was build a proper data warehouse and look for a BI tool that could allow us to really democratize data at Teachable. And so we went through that process. Took maybe 6 months or so to really build a proper data warehouse. Moved away from some third-party ETL stuff to using Airflow. I could talk more about that as well. And one of the big things was we tried a bunch of different business intelligence platforms, and we ended up using a new one called Sigma Computing. They're not quite as new now. And Sigma has sort of a spreadsheet-like interface. It's much easier for business users to learn and understand. The learning curve was much shallower than, I've used Tableau at a number of organizations, used Looker a few times, and I've never had the adoption of the BI platform anywhere like we've had at Teachable. So it has really allowed us to open up, make the data available to all the teams. And at this point, we're in a place where pretty much all the different business teams do most of their own pulling of data. They do a lot of analysis on their own. The data team is here to help with, making data sources available that aren't already available, and helping out with kind of more complex analytics. So the data analysts now are able to do more exploratory stuff, more of the kind of value add for the company as opposed to just running SQL queries because it was too hard for anybody to access data in the BI platform. So that to me is how to make a data-driven company. And I feel like we've been pretty successful with what my goals were in terms of unlocking that and democratizing the data.
Yeah, definitely. And could you tell us more about build versus buy and how many and what types of people are really necessary for this data space?
Yeah. So this is another piece of the work that we did in building out the data warehouse. When I joined, we were using a third-party ETL tool, and it was just really unsatisfactory. And this is something that I feel like every time I encounter a situation where we're using some third party for ETL or data cleaning or event capture, and I've encountered those things a few times, it never ends up satisfactory. It can be a quick solution for a small company that doesn't have the resources for a data team, can't devote engineers to data yet. But you grow to a certain point where any of the third-party vendors out there, in my experience, just they're not flexible enough. You end up with stuff that you want to capture that you can't. In our particular case, we're using a third party for ETL, and that was very limiting in what kind of transformations we could do on the data because the platform we were using didn't have a way to just kind of plug in a script and say, do whatever I want to do with the data. It was drag and drop things, and you were kind of limited to what sorts of transformations they made available. And we were also using a third party for event capture, and that was okay. I mean, the events were captured properly, but because we were paying on volume, we never captured events from the student side of our application. So, we've got thousands of schools, millions of students, but we weren't capturing any events from what was happening with student interactions in the application because it was just too expensive to do. So, building our own event pipeline, it's not that hard. I've done this at like 3 companies now, building event capture. ETL with Airflow, it's not that hard to set up. You do need to have a couple of engineering resources available. So if the company is not big enough for that, then it may not be time. But I think once you get to the size where you can afford to have a couple of data engineers, it's well worth it to transition to doing your own event capture, doing your own ETL, doing your own data cleaning. You get a lot more bang for your buck there.
Yeah, definitely. Great explanation. And what are some interesting projects that you've worked on at your company?
One thing that we're working on right now that I'm really excited about is customer-facing advanced reporting. We have traditionally in the Teachable platform had reporting be developed by the product engineering teams. So when a team develops a product, say like checkout features or something like that, they'll typically also add some reporting around that for our customers to see how things are working. And that's fine, but it's not great overall. And a lot of that stuff was built before the data team existed. We've only been around for not quite 3 years that I've been here yet. And so there was always this kind of sense of sort of a gap in the application that we didn't have really great reporting. And we tried out at the beginning of this year an MVP with embedding BI, and it didn't work as well as we wanted. The embeds were fine, but just the overall experience didn't get to where we wanted. And it had been kind of driven by, again, product teams, and the data team was helping out with providing the data and the APIs, but we weren't really designing the visualizations or the experience. And I think that what we kind of agreed on as we came to the end of that was that the product teams didn't really want to or necessarily have the expertise to own reporting, and it would make more sense for the data team. We have a visualization engineer on the team, so we have a lot more expertise in that, and definitely feel a lot more ownership around reporting and data delivery. So so we have been working on an advanced reporting product, and we're gonna use some micro front ends. We're very excited about it. Some fun technology, and I think we're gonna be able to deliver a lot of value to our customers. So real excited about that one. And just in general, in terms of interesting projects, as a data engineer, I personally find event capture pipelines and ETL platforms really interesting. So the whole experience of building out our event captures, having Airflow set up and getting that all running, having engineers on my team figuring out how to deploy Airflow in Kubernetes and stuff like that. I find that kind of stuff really interesting. So you've got to be a little bit of a data infrastructure nerd to enjoy that kind of thing, I guess. But those are fun projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's super exciting stuff that you're working on right now with your team. And how do you think the line of work that you're doing right now is going to impact the future?
That's a really interesting question. I feel like the data engineering space is evolving so quickly that I'm not sure yet what the future is going to be. Like just a few years ago, we didn't really use the term data engineer. That's a pretty new thing. And the technology has been evolving so quickly. From Hadoop and HDFS and using technologies like Pig to kind of automate jobs, to having relational databases like Redshift and Snowflake available. And I think, I'm hearing an awful lot about dbt these days, which I have not tried yet myself, but it seems to be really hot. And I think that the overarching theme is kind of simplifying, like layers of complexity are being removed, and we keep removing these layers of complexity and making things easier and easier. And in a way, it kind of goes back again to my argument about build versus buy, which is the technologies are getting easier and easier to use, and it's really easy now to set up Airflow and get that running. So why do I need to pay for a third-party company to do my ETL, right? And I think that tools like dbt are getting used in conjunction with Airflow to try and make various processes easier and more accessible. So I feel like we are impacting the future by making the future of data work more accessible. I feel like we're going to get to a point where so much of data science has been commoditized that data science roles will probably change in the future, and it's getting much easier to just take an off-the-shelf machine learning solution. I think that it's getting to a point where you can just take like an ML solution off the shelf, like from AWS or IBM or whoever, and just plug in, so that we will probably always have data scientists, but I feel like it's always going to be like the people with the real expertise will be pushing the boundaries and working on more and more complex stuff, and things that used to be really complicated are now easy to do, and so they're much more accessible. And I feel like that's kind of just the future of the data space, is increased accessibility.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great insight there, especially since this field is just changing so much, and it's kind of hard to tell if what's going to change and what's going to be impacted. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a great field to be working in with all the major changes that are happening and all the problems we can solve with data and data science today. It's so interesting to hear. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very exciting space for sure.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today on our show. At the Data Standard, we're trying to bring together data experts to come together and just be able to network and communicate with each other. So, what is something the community could help you do?
Um, I I would love to have more resources for the less experienced people on my team to learn more. I've got analysts on my team who are learning statistical analyses, and they're constantly seeking guidance, and just having a community with a lot of resources available for newer people in the space to learn and get up to speed on different technologies and things is a really valuable thing.
Absolutely. And where can everyone find you online to connect with you?
I guess the best place would be LinkedIn because I don't have much of a social media presence.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, LinkedIn is great. And to our audience, for more information on the Data Standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. And thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show and get to hear more about your experiences and your background. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.